Live from New York, this is the Harvey Hour. My name is Stephen Harvey. Good to have you in on a beautiful Tuesday. Not that beautiful, it's raining. In a little bit of a rain patch here today and tomorrow. It's going to be disgusting in New York. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. How are you doing today on this Tuesday?
I'm good. Big weekend. Lots of news in the NFL now. Black Monday, coaches being fired. Lots to talk about tonight.
Yeah, we have a really good show planned for you. A lot of topics tonight. We got yesterday's game that we'll talk about. The national championship. Congratulations to Michigan, able to claim their first national title since 1997. We'll talk about that later on in the show. But let's get into the breaking news that broke at about, I want to say, 3 o'clock today, which is that Mike Vrabel has been fired as the head coach of the Tennessee Titans. He compiled a winning record, I would say a very, very solid 61 and 53 record as head coach of the Tennessee Titans. The controlling owner, which is, I'll bring up the quote right now, she had this to say. Amy Adams Strunk, she said, and I quote, "As the NFL continues to innovate and evolve, I believe the team's best position for sustained success will be those who empower an aligned and a collaborative team across all football functions. Last year, we began a shift in our approach to football leadership and made several changes to our personnel to advance that plan. As I continued to assess the state of our team, I arrived at the conclusion that the team would also benefit from the fresh approach and perspective of a new coaching staff." That is the controlling owner, Amy Adams Strunk, talking about the firing of Mike Vrabel today in a very, very long statement. I just took a portion of that statement out. I want to know, what did you think of that statement? Are you surprised the Titans would actually move off of Mike Vrabel only 6 seasons into his coaching career?
Don't give him much room for error. I mean, he had the first 4 seasons he had a winning record. He had a winning record every year, I believe. He went to the AFC Championship in 2021, 12-5 record, and lost to the Chiefs in that game, which losing to the Chiefs is not something to be discouraged about. They're a very good team. And then he also made the playoffs. He had a 12-5 record in another season, and they got knocked out in the first round. So, they did make the playoffs a couple of times. They had decent records, but I think it's not going to be that big a deal for him to leave this team because both Tannehill and Derrick Henry are free agents.
Right.
They're going to be gone. And you know what? I think one mistake he made, he should have gotten off Tannehill sooner. He should have tried to get a different quarterback like 3 years ago or so, because Tannehill had been on a downswing, and he throws too many interceptions. He makes big mistakes in big games. I think he was one of the reasons they lost their last playoff game that they were in 3 years ago now, and he's just never been very good for them after that. So right. I think they should have gotten off of him sooner. I think that would have helped him. His defense has been okay. He's a pretty good defense. He comes from playing for the Patriots for many years, so he knew a lot about defense, Belichick's schemes and education to him. So I think he'll find another head coaching job, not too long a time period. I think he'll be picked up here this season by another team, maybe Atlanta. Atlanta might be one. Panthers could be another one.
Right.
So I don't know about the Patriots. We'll see. If they fire Bill Belichick, they may look at him too, but I don't think that's going to happen. I would say Amy Adams Strunk is in a tough spot.
Right.
I just think her team is not going to be much next year. Really, if they lose both. I don't think Tannehill's a great loss, but Derrick Henry's a big loss if you don't re-sign him. He may be on the other side now. I mean, he's taken a lot of hits. He's a older veteran now, but he's still got some mileage in the tank, and losing him will be a big deal. Their offense is not good. Their offensive line is terrible. So they got a lot of work to do, and they'll have a brand new coaching staff. Whether they can be relevant next year or not, I doubt it.
So when it comes to this firing, I don't agree with it whatsoever, just because I think it's a little too soon. I mean, I would say for me, Mike Vrabel, I think a lot of people acknowledge this, he's a culture builder. And what he did with the Titans is very, very impressive. We see a lot of clips of him talking to players, and it seems like he's a very approachable guy, and he builds a tremendous culture, which the Titans definitely need and needed at the time, and Mike Vrabel was the perfect candidate for that job. When it comes to firing this time around, I think it's good for Mike Vrabel. I think it's bad for the Titans because they're going to be in a tough situation where they're going to need to find a guy who can maintain the culture and move it into a winning culture of potentially Super Bowl caliber. What I saw, when I read the quote by the controlling owner, I thought it was very, very fascinating that it seemed like there was a power struggle between Mike Vrabel and the GM. And we take a look at some of the draft picks. I mean, first of all, the quarterback situation. Malik Willis was never going to be a star quarterback. I don't understand that whatsoever. And then not putting time in to develop Will Levis this season, instead giving preseason reps and first team reps a lot of the time to either Ryan Tannehill or Malik Willis. He got a number of reps instead of Will Levis, who's your brand new draft pick. The offensive line is a disgrace. The defense the past couple of seasons has been atrocious. Passing defense last year is ranked dead last. So the defensive part of the football that Mike Vrabel he played in, and now he was the DC of Houston in 2016 before he started coaching for the Titans. It wasn't that great. It hasn't been really great. And the best it was when they were 11-6 and made the conference championship, if I'm not mistaken. They also made the number 1 seed in the AFC in 2021 with Ryan Tannehill at quarterback. So it's not that Mike Vrabel was an absolute failure. I just think that the way the Titans are looking, I think it's wrong for them to look this way at this moment in time, is they're trying to find a coach to bring them over the hump. They were a poor culture. Mike Vrabel comes in, fixes it, maintains it, creates a great culture, and now they're leaving with a great culture. Derrick Henry said he was shocked. He's probably going to be out of there regardless. 8 seasons. He had a phenomenal career with the Tennessee Titans. He's on a contract year. He'll be somewhere else, I guarantee you, next season. So this team seems like it's trying to keep something going on, some sort of winning that Mike Vrabel bought them. Now, in the past 2 years, it hasn't been that case. He's had 4 out of 6 winning seasons. They're trying to find a coach to replace Mike Vrabel that can maintain that culture and then move them into Super Bowl contention. The only problem is that this team needs to be at some sort of a rebuild here. There's too many obstacles for a new coach to jump over, whether it be the offensive line, a brand new running back, a potential poor quarterback situation. The defense is in shambles. There's a lot of issues with the Tennessee Titans that I don't know if a new coach will do it. When it comes to Mike Vrabel, and we'll talk about his next destination right now, if we're talking about what Mike Vrabel is as a culture builder, the best spot for me would be 2 places and only 2 places. The first one would be the Commanders. With a very, very poor owner and a crazy owner that they got off of, the Commanders need some sort of stability. Whether it be a coach, quarterback, both, I'm not entirely sure. But what I would do if I'm Mike Vrabel, I look at the Commanders situation, and I would realize there might be something there. The Commanders or the front office has gotten better. I'm a culture-building coach. I can work with what the Commanders have. The second place, which I guarantee you is probably the worst place and the worst job to take, is the Carolina job. You have a unstable owner who I don't really like personally, David Tepper. He's splashing water or whatever he's drinking on fans. He got fined for that, whatever the case may be. However, you do have a budding quarterback that we don't know exactly what's going to happen with Bryce Young. He didn't really show much when he was struck with adversity. But you do have a very young quarterback. The team is pretty young. You had a pretty decent defense. I'm not saying it's great. I'm not saying it's good. It was okay this season. It was better last year with Steve Wilks. But you have something there. I would consider both those 2 teams who need some sort of culture. Steve Wilks, he built a great culture after Matt Rule got fired. The team was playing for him. And now he's the DC of the 49ers. And look how great that 49ers defense is. So he'll probably get another head coaching stint somewhere. I don't know if it's this year. I don't know if it'll be next year. But I do think Steve Wilks will get another opportunity. Mike Vrabel, when it comes to this situation, I think there's only 2 jobs. I would not go back to the Patriots, although that situation now just got much more interesting with Bill Belichick. For me, it's the Commanders or the Panthers. If I had to choose, if I'm Mike Vrabel and those 2 opportunities presented itself, just based on how much of a tire fire each situation is, I would much rather go with the Commanders, who have a better organization, at least front office wise now, than I would with the Panthers, who their owner I don't particularly like. So that's my take. What do you think? Where do you think that Mike Vrabel should go to when it's all said and done?
He had a choice, and the Commanders offered him the job. I think he should go there because it's a bigger market.
Okay.
And I don't know about the quarterback. I felt pretty good about Sam Howell early on. He did look pretty good, but the last part of the season, man, he kind of fell apart.
Right.
And they benched him actually, and he would have stayed benched if Jacoby Brissett had stayed healthy. But he got hurt in practice and he couldn't play. So Sam Howell is a question mark. They traded away their two best defensive ends to other teams midseason, so they have some draft picks. I think that would be the best landing spot for him. It's a big market, new ownership, some good players on that team. They have Terry McLaurin. He's a good wide receiver. On defense, though, they traded away the two defensive ends, which are both
Young, right?
Yeah, both very good players. So they got draft picks for that. But the teams they traded them to, was it 49ers? Didn't they get one of
49ers got Chase Young, and then the Bears got Sweat.
That's going to be a low pick. The 49ers are right at the top of the league. The Bears, on the other hand, who got Sweat, that pick probably will be pretty good, pretty high up in the draft. So I think the Panthers, if he didn't land the Washington job and Atlanta was not interested, and the Patriots hang on to Bill Belichick, which is what I think is going to happen. The Chargers look to be headed to get Jim Harbaugh. I think that's who they'd like to have. Maybe Atlanta is a landing spot for him. But Arthur Smith went from the Titans down to Atlanta, and look what happened to him. He got fired. So They may not want to go that route again. But we'll see. Atlanta's going to have to find somebody. And Vrabel has won over 60 games. He beat the Patriots at home in a playoff game.
Tom Brady's last game as a Patriot.
Yeah, and so he's got some. He has some stuff on his resume that looks pretty good. And you look around at what else is out there to pick from, then I'm pretty sure he's going to get a job. I'm just not quite sure where.
I do think he is probably one of the most coveted NFL coaches, because Jim Harbaugh is probably the top candidate really anywhere, just based on what he's done with Michigan. And I think if we're talking about coaching in the NFL alone, right now, who's available, I'd say he's probably the top candidate anywhere, just because of what he built culture-wise. And a lot of teams need that sort of uplifting of their culture, because a lot of these losing cultures, Atlanta's a losing culture. Ever since that Patriots-Falcons Super Bowl, they've never rebounded. The Raiders, they haven't been good in how long? Since what, 2002?
Yeah.
And they lost to the Bucs in that Super Bowl. Was that the last time they were really something special? Maybe. So a couple of these teams, the Chargers, they've had an unfortunate run because they had to face Tom Brady in the playoffs a number of times. But coming from Brandon Staley into a new coach, you got to find a good coach that could keep Justin Herbert at the level he's playing and elevate him if that's even possible. So I think the Chargers are going to be interesting because just the amount of control that he might have if they go out and get a GM, or will Mike Vrabel be the de facto GM and head coach, which a number of long tenured coaches are, like a Pete Carroll, Bill Belichick, Sean Payton. He works with the GM, but still a lot of power within an organization, because it sounds like the Titans had a problem with the power struggle between Vrabel and the GM.
Yeah.
So, what do I say? Mike Vrabel fired as the Tennessee Titans head coach. We'll see what his market looks like in this offseason. We're going to take a quick 20-second break, but we'll be back right after this.
Using Wi-Fi without NordVPN could mean sharing your private stuff with more people than you think. Stay safe on public Wi-Fi. Get NordVPN's special offer and encrypt your internet connection. NordVPN. Online security starts with a click.
Whether you're just discovering your voice or taking your show to the next level, you know what the world needs to hear. All you have to do is say it. With Spotify, set up your podcast. Your food podcast. Your mindfulness podcast. Your never thought you'd get this far podcast. And watch those sparks fly.
I put a picture of the content.
Drop the episode anywhere people listen. And find out who they're cooking with. Where they're finding inner balance. And why they love your show. You're already a creator. Now you can create, connect, and get paid for your passion with one single free tool. Spotify for podcasters. Talk where the world listens.
Welcome back to the Harvey here. Sorry about that break. We had a little bit of technical difficulties. But let's get into our next topic here, which is indeed, we're talking about the Packers and Bears game. I found this very, very fascinating. This episode of the Harvey Hour is a lot about quarterbacks, I feel. And there's a lot of pretty good quarterback play and pretty surprising quarterback play when it comes to this season. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. Sorry about that. But let's jump into this topic. So Jordan Love leads the Packers to the playoffs as the first season as the Packers starter. It's very, very impressive what he's done with the Packers thus far. Aaron Rodgers couldn't do it in the last season with this very, very young group. I want to know, do you think, we talked about this before when things were looking shaky very early on. We talked about it before the season started. And we've come to this topic a couple times. But now, after Jordan Love was able to make the playoffs with the Packers, do you think he is the Packers franchise quarterback moving forward?
I think he gets some more time. I'm not sure they consider him a franchise quarterback just yet, but I do think he'll be there next year and be the starter. I think the rebound that they made, I give the coach, LaFleur, a lot of credit for that rebound. They looked like they were dead in the water there. They rebounded. He gave them some motivational talks, I guess, and they got some confidence, and they played quite well after that. And Jordan Love's stats, as you showed in a prior Harvey Hour topic on Jordan Love, his stats are as good as Aaron Rodgers are at this point in Aaron Rodgers' career. You have that for us right here. So the record, whoops.
Sorry, we have a little bit of technical difficulties right now. Let's go to break. We'll go back to break and we'll be back right after this.
Whether you're just discovering your voice or taking your show to the next level, you know what the world needs to hear. All you have to do is say it. With Spotify, set up your podcast. Your food.
All right, we're back. Sorry. Headphone issues. Continue your take. What were you saying?
Put those stats up there.
Okay,
so now we're looking at Jordan Love. He's got a better record than Aaron Rodgers did. His completion percentage is just a hair lower. Yards passing per game, higher, 244 versus 217. Yards per attempt, a little better. TD to interception ratio, better than Aaron Rodgers. Passer rating, 96.1 versus 91.1. That tells you something. Did Aaron Rodgers, he didn't make the playoffs.
He did not.
He didn't make
that last game against the Lions, he would have made it if they won.
Yeah. So I think Jordan Love speaks pretty well for him. I think one thing that will say more about whether they think of him as a franchise quarterback is how he does in his first playoff game. Right? He's going up against the Cowboys at home. It's going to be really tough. There won't be many Packers fans in that crowd. And I think how he performs in that game, he doesn't necessarily have to win the game, but if he plays pretty much mistake-free football and he keeps them competitive in the game and they have a chance maybe later in the third quarter or the fourth quarter to make it really close, then I think that speaks very highly for him, and they will have more confidence in him and maybe think of him more as a franchise quarterback.
When it comes to Jordan Love, he definitely has ups and downs. Going into the season, I said, can he do similar things than Aaron Rodgers did last season? And just like you mentioned before, the answer is yes. And you know what? He could do better than Rodgers did last season. These are the numbers. Like Dad said, 8-9 record compared to 9-8. Jordan Love's better. He's a slightly worse completion percentage. Better yards per game, better yards per attempt, better touchdown interception ratio, better passer rating. He's done everything. And not only that, he made the playoffs with this young group. We've seen Aaron Rodgers, and he wasn't happy with Romeo Doubs, and he won't take him out to dinner, he said, or any of that. Christian Watson, we saw early in the season, when he had that horrible drop early in the year, and it was a very, very bad drop, they needed to do jet sweeps to get Christian Watson back involved in the offense because Rodgers didn't trust him. So we know Rodgers is very stuck in his ways. He doesn't practice in the offseason, although with the Jets, we did see him practicing very, very early in the offseason. But what Jordan Love did was very, very impressive. He definitely had a dip, and even before the season, Matt LaFleur says, we got to calm our Jets a little bit. We got to let this kid work out. And to start off, didn't look that great. About midway through the year, something snapped, and Jordan Love became what he is. In the last 8 games of the season, take a look at these numbers here. Absolutely incredible. 6-2 record, 70% completion percentage, about 270 passing yards per game, 18 touchdowns, only a single interception. Yards per attempt is 7.8 and a passer rating of 112.9. If you actually round it up, it's like 112.97. You round that to 113. Because why not? So Jordan Love in the past 8 games has been actually incredible. One of the best quarterbacks in the league in the past 8 games. So I think if he continues along this streak, and this team is very young, and that favors Jordan Love, because they don't need to spend a lot of money trying to get any top guy, so they could actually keep building around him without spending tremendous amounts of money. I think Jordan Love is in a great position, and I think if he continues to play like this, and I agree with you, he doesn't need to beat the Cowboys to make a statement. All he needs to do is play well. Now it's going to be very, very difficult against the Cowboys pass rush. That is insane. With Micah Parsons in the regular season leading in pressures, it's going to be very, very difficult for the Packers to do anything behind that offensive line, and their defense has surprisingly been very, very underwhelming, like bottom 10 in the league, and they have a top corner on their team. So it's going to be very, very difficult for Jordan Love to actually upset the Cowboys. But if he throws 275, 2 touchdowns, I'll even give him an interception, and it looks good. I would say 65% completion percentage. I would say there's something there. There is something there. And what we saw at the back half of the season was, it's impressive. This kid could play.
I would say his slow start had a lot to do with the receiver core, right? It was all rookies and one second-year player. It took those guys a while to gel. Once they did, look what they did in the second half of the season. And look, he had 32 touchdown passes. That's pretty impressive. I think that's right up there in the league. I don't know how many quarterbacks have more than 32 passing touchdowns. Not that many. I think that speaks well, and it speaks well for a receiver core that was really nobody knew what it could be.
Passing touchdowns.
Yeah,
four behind Dak Prescott.
Okay, so that's pretty impressive given his receiver core is a bunch of rookies and one second-year player.
2 second-year, Dobbs and Watson.
Okay.
Still,
2 second-year players.
They are the youngest team in the NFL, youngest offense in the NFL.
That speaks very highly for them going forward. So, yeah, I think that the game will be fun to watch.
Absolutely.
The playoff game, yeah.
And not only that, we talk about, think about this for a second. In Jordan Love's first year of starting, his last game was against the Bears. He threw for more yards than any Bears quarterback has ever in a singular season. And he did that even before entering this game. So if we talk about historically, put Jordan Love on the Bears, see what he could do with that, because clearly he could throw. If he was on the Bears, he'd be the best quarterback in a single season the Bears have ever had.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the kid definitely has talent. Being behind Aaron Rodgers for 3 years definitely helps certain quarterbacks that need it. I think if Trey Lance, the problem with Trey Lance was he didn't really have anyone he could watch and develop under besides Jimmy Garoppolo. And I hate to break it to a lot of people. I don't think a lot of people would be shocked by this. Jimmy Garoppolo is not the best guy to sit behind because he's not. He is a veteran in the league, but he's not all world. He's not super talented. Sitting behind an Aaron Rodgers, who is one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game, that helps you a lot. And the Packers have now done that twice. Brett Favre, Rodgers. Now Rodgers to Jordan Love.
Yeah.
They haven't missed on their past 2 quarterbacks.
And Aaron Rodgers sat on the bench for 3 years, right?
Exactly.
Before he got his chance, too.
So I think right now the Packers, for the 3rd straight time, I think they've hit on a quarterback. Do I think he'll get the gold jacket when it's all said and done? I have no idea. It's way too early to tell. Way too early to tell. But what I did see from Jordan Love in this game is that he's super talented. He can make the big plays, and in the back half of the season, he had a serious rhythm going. And I think really if the Cowboys were the 5 seed, and this is a hypothetical, if the Cowboys and Packers still played but the Packers were at home, I would fear for the Cowboys losing this game. Because they're not good on the road, and Jordan Love and this Packers team have hit a stride.
Yeah, and also it'll be very cold in Green Bay.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, and if I'm not, so I see a lot of great things with Jordan Love. I expect him to have a pretty good career. I think if they maintain the status quo of drafting pretty good players to help him around, build the offensive line, work on that defense that desperately needs help. But Jordan Love, as it is right now, he's shown that he could do it.
Yeah, and I think LaFleur shows that he's a good coach, too.
Absolutely.
Right? To take that new quarterback, all those really young receivers, get them to gel like that and play like that the second half of the season, make the playoffs when everyone thought they would toast. I think it's very credible. Shows that he's more than a coach than just having Aaron Rodgers, an MVP quarterback, playing for him, right? He really proved that he's a very good coach.
and I think Mike McCarthy had that same question, and we know at least he's not winning Super Bowls, but he's still winning a lot of games with the Cowboys.
Yeah, well, he's on watch too.
I
Jerry
would
Jones
say
said, "We'll see how the."
Right.
They asked him if he had confidence in McCarthy, and he said, "Well, we'll see how the next couple of games go."
Right.
Right.
Which
So,
I don't know if that's fair entering the playoffs to say, yeah, by the way, you're on the hot
win
seat
or you're
for-
done.
Right. I want to talk about the other side of this game, though, because the Chicago Bears have now missed the playoffs for 3 straight seasons. It's not great. Now, there was a lot of question around Justin Fields and his status with the Chicago Bears, and he actually responded to that in a press conference earlier this week, and this is what he had to say.
I have a pretty good relationship with Ryan and the guys upstairs, but at the end of the day, this is a business, so they have to make the tough decisions, and my job is just to go out there and play my best. But it would mean a lot just to get that confirmation from them and just really send a message that they trust me to lead this team and be the quarterback for the Bears. All I can control is what I did do, and I gave it my all. So whether it's here or not, I have no regrets. Yeah, just to the city of Chicago, love y'all, appreciate the fans and the support from all the Bears. In case this is my last rodeo with y'all, and just appreciate y'all for everything. So, yeah.
And that was Jordan Love. Not Jordan Love. Justin Fields talking about his potential, the potential situation where he's no longer the quarterback of the Bears. This is one, like you said, this is the second year in a row where they've had a quarterback in the early round, had a high draft pick. They traded away last time and got an insane amount for that first overall pick. But I want to know, do you think the Bears should keep Justin Fields or move off of him and draft? Because they had the Panthers pick at the number 1 overall spot. They also have the number 9 pick. They could do something where they draft a receiver first, go wide receiver second, or trade the pick away and have that entire situation when it comes to trading that pick. I want to know, do you think they should keep Fields or they should draft a brand new quarterback this season?
I think they'll draft Caleb Williams. Yeah, I think that his stats and his potential are pretty much off the charts. You look at what he's done in college, right? His in just 2023 alone, 3,600 passing yards, 30 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, an 82.4 QBR rating over his whole career, almost 67% completion percentage, 10,000 yards, 93 TDs, 14 interceptions. His career quarterback rating is like passer rating 169.3. Almost had 1,000 yards rushing. He's big enough, 6'1", 215. I think they have to pick him. Because if they don't, and he turns out to be, a Hall of Fame quarterback, they'll never live it down. And Justin Fields is a question mark, right? He showed some signs this year in the second half of the year, but in the first part, he said his head was all full of information from the coaches. He couldn't think out there, or he was thinking too much. And he said, I just need to let go and play. And he did play better after that. He got hurt for part of the season. He has one really good wide receiver, and they made pretty good connections in some of the games there. But I think that when you get the number 1 pick and there's a quarterback out there like that, I think you have to take him. That's
so for me, and we talked about this before, and we each said that the Bears just don't have enough talent for Justin Fields to succeed. And while that still might be true, this game against the Packers told me everything that I need to know. The conclusion that I refused to believe, because I still thought that if he just had a slightly better offensive line, if he had another weapon, that everything would be okay. And watching this game, I might be a little bit of prisoner of the moment. This game against the Packers told me everything. Justin Fields is not going to be the quarterback of the Bears next season. When the defense, and early in the game, I was like, oh, God, the defense, what can it do? And they were up, by the way, 3-0 after the end of the first quarter, but the defense did its job. 17 points. If that were a team's average, they'd be, I think, second or third to fewest in the league. The Bears only scored 9 points. Justin Fields did not play well in this game. Now, you could look at the completion percentage be, 11-16, okay, and then look at the yards, 148 passing yards, 8 carries for 27 yards. He's not a winning quarterback. I don't think I think he's very, very exciting to watch just because of his athletic ability, but he is just not good enough to overcome adversity. We've seen rookie quarterbacks this season overcome adversity. Will Levis even did. He went out and beat the Dolphins in a comeback drive with less than 4 minutes remaining. They were down by 14 points, and they still were able to come up with a win. I don't see Justin Fields doing that. I really don't. Not only that, he has turnover issues. He fumbles the ball like nobody else. It's Daniel Jones out there fumbling the football. I liked what I saw when he was on this bit of a hot streak when the defense was shutting teams down and Justin Fields could capitalize. In this game against the Packers, the Bears had him right where they want him. Very, very low-scoring game. The defense stepping up and Jordan Love actually not really hitting a stride in the entirety of the game. And Justin Fields couldn't get it done. Late in the game, yeah, was there a missed call on a slide? Maybe. Although the argument was that it was a clean hit because they were I guess it was a clean hit because they were basically about to hit each other at the same exact moment, and he didn't initiate the slide earlier, so it was basically like a bang-bang play. It was fine. Now, are the Bears a super talented team overall? No. Was their defense much better at the end of the midway point of the season? Yes. After the trade deadline, they were one of the best defenses in the league. And Justin Fields as a quarterback, by the way, this year, he doubled his win total for his career. For a career, Justin Fields is 5-28 with a 60% completion percentage. He has 6,000 total yards, so it's about 2,200 yards per season, 40 touchdowns to 30 picks. I don't think that's winning in this league. I think if you had an opportunity to go out and get Caleb Williams, who a lot of people are saying he's the next Patrick Mahomes, you would want to figure out if that's true. You don't want to give up a talent like that and just give him away to, let's say, the Commanders for what? For the second pick and another pick down there. When the Commanders in your own conference could be dominant, potentially try to go for the NFC East, which I don't think they'll do anytime soon, but there is that likelihood with a quarterback like Caleb Williams. Look at CJ Stroud. But I don't see Justin Fields overcoming adversity. I don't see him going out and leading a game-winning drive to win a game. I don't see that. What I do see is a very, very athletic guy who may be in a different situation like Atlanta, who fits that running scheme better, who has a better offensive line, a better defense. They could help him a little bit more. The Bears don't help him, but he doesn't help himself with the amount of times he turns the ball over. And, let's be honest, it didn't look all that great. He struggles to win. It was a poor offensive line last year. They missed the playoffs for the third straight time. I'm saying Justin Fields is not a Chicago Bear next season. I think he does move on to another team. I think Atlanta would be a perfect spot because that's the place I said Anthony Richardson should go when we were doing our mock draft. When the Lamar Jackson thing was going on, I said Atlanta should be involved because this, at least with Arthur Smith, was a much more mobile and running offense. Now, what will the next head coach do? That's an entirely different subject.
Yeah. I think, just to add to what you've said about Justin Fields and his ability to win games late in the game. He's last in fourth quarter completion percentage. He's 25th in yards per attempt in the fourth quarter. He has 6 interceptions in the fourth quarter. He's 30th in quarterback rating at 20.4 in the fourth quarter. He plays lousy in the fourth quarter.
Right.
And that's when you win or lose games generally. So that's something he has to overcome. I agree with you. I think Atlanta would be a good landing spot for him. They may not have to give up that much to get him either. Maybe a second-round pick. I don't know. Which
I don't think you'd be overpaying for a guy with that amount of talent.
No, I think he still has a chance. So he's in a situation with an offense more like Lamar Jackson's offense, right? Which Atlanta's offense could be with Bijan Robinson in the backfield, right? He had a fantastic year having both those guys back there. And focusing more on the run and a little less on the pass could work out well. So I think that the Bears will take Williams, and I think they will trade Fields, and I think Atlanta would be a good spot for him to land, and I don't think they'll have to give up that much to get him.
And because the Bears were so poor this season, they also have the number 9 pick, which is big because I think you can get a top 3 receiver at the number 9 spot.
Yeah. Do you think Eberflus will be fired?
I think he will when it's all said and done. I think they will be in the head coaching market eventually. I think people are saying, he won't be fired just because the first wave of firings, the really disappointing coaches. But the Mike Vrabel thing, I still don't entirely don't understand why. The Arthur Smith, I can understand. Who's the other coach? I forget who the other coaches, but the coach that needed to go.
Panthers coach was fired.
Right. Well, that was
He was an interim coach.
Yeah,
anyway.
exactly. So the first
the
wave
Chargers
of firings,
coach was fired before the season was over.
All the first wave of firings is gone. Do I think Eberflus, because the defense stepped up late in the season, could they?
He might make it.
I don't know if that's a great idea. I really don't. So I think they should be in the head coaching market. If you could go out and get a Ben Johnson, who as an OC for the Lions, look at the Lions offense. It's one of the best in the league the past couple seasons. You can go out. I'm not saying if Belichick is out there. Belichick's out there. You have Vrabel out there now. You have a couple. Jim Harbaugh is out there as well. You have a couple names out there. You might want to go out and get Eric Bieniemy, because look at the Chiefs' offense this season without him as the OC. Doesn't look anywhere near the same. So if I were the Bears, I would be in the not only the quarterback market, I'd also be in the head coaching market as well. You have an opportunity to get a really, really great coach this season. Make it true.
We'll see.
All right, let's get into this next topic now. I called this. I called this on Friday. I said, what a perfect ending, a poetic ending to Bill Belichick's tenure with the Patriots, where it comes to a point where at the end of 7.5 years, 15 games, Trevor Siemian and the Jets will finally beat Bill Belichick. By the way, I've said this before. The last time the Jets won, I actually was at that game. It was my first ever NFL game 2,933 days ago, which is a crazy number. They put it up on the broadcast. So it was a very, very tough loss for Bill Belichick. And on Monday, there were reports out that he's meeting with Robert Kraft. And at 7:30 in the morning, he met with the media to talk about his future. And this was Bill Belichick at that meeting.
I'm under contract, do what I always do, which is, every day I come in, work as hard as I can to help the team in whatever way I can. So that's what I'm going to continue to do. Look, I'm for whatever, collectively we decide as an organization is the best thing to help our football team. I think we have some things that we can build on. I think there's some things that we need to fix and change. Well, the moves that we made, given the options that we had, we felt like we did what was best for the football team. Each time, obviously, the results aren't good. Some of those things were, I think, positive. Some of them didn't work out as well as we hoped they would. There were other circumstances in some of the other decisions as well. So we'll go back and look at all of them, and again, look forward to working towards solutions and things that will improve our team.
So that was Bill Belichick on Monday. I want to know, do you think that you've been a very, very strong defender of Belichick, even when things got grim? A lot of reports came out saying that they're probably going to move on. You've maybe accepted that, but after hearing what Belichick said on Monday, do you think Sunday was really his last game as the head coach of the New England Patriots?
I don't. I think they're going to retain him. And I think they're going to bring in Josh McDaniel to be the offensive coordinator, reunite him with Belichick. They won 6 Super Bowls together. And I think they're going to give him one more try at that. And I think that's what he's proposed to Kraft. And Kraft, the family, likes Josh McDaniel. They made him the highest paid offensive coordinator back when he wanted to go to and actually accepted the job with the Colts. And he came back to the Patriots. Their offensive hadn't been the same at all since he left. It makes it interesting if they do that and they bring in McDaniels and they let Bill Belichick stay. Whether there's some hope that Mac Jones still has an opportunity with them, because Mac Jones played well under Josh McDaniel. He wound up in the Pro Bowl as an alternate, and his future was looking very bright, and then he kind of crashed and burned. If he could be resurrected, then Josh McDaniel is probably the best one to do that. They may not even be thinking that. I don't know, but I do think that he didn't get fired on Monday. They had talks. They're talking again. I heard it was going to be on Thursday, and then there'll be something coming out before the end of the week. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that Kraft gives him one more chance. I think that his defense is great. He just bring back those players. Should be able to get most of them back. The ones that were injured will be back, and they were both excellent players, Gonzalez and Judon. And he developed players during the year. Wilson Sr. played very well. Keon White, a rookie, played really well. Barnmore needs to be re-signed. They're back for the secondary. There were new names in there the last couple of weeks. This guy, Austin, he played very well at safety. So I think that, they need to fix the offense. And bringing back Josh McDaniel, who had great success because most of that was with Tom Brady. But bringing him back, and maybe they will draft a quarterback. I'm not sure. That I don't know about the draft. That's something that has to be talked about later on. But for right now, I'm predicting that Belichick stays with the Patriots for another year.
So I have ripped on Belichick since starting
Badly.
the show. And I think it was warranted, though, just because of the performance pre-Brady, during Brady, and post-Brady. And this year exemplified that to a case where it's basically pretty obvious there's stuff that's wrong and there's stuff that Bill Belichick was uncomfortable with. And that's where I get into it. Belichick, for me, and if you look at it, it seems like he's uncomfortable and he's trying to find a place of comfort. Belichick, in his losses recently, he lost Ernie Adams, a tremendous, knowledgeable guy, worked very, very closely with Bill Belichick. He lost Dante Scarnecchia, probably the best offensive line coach that I've probably ever seen. Joe Judge and Josh McDaniels, special teams coach when they had probably the best special teams in the NFL, and McDaniels, who made Mac Jones into a Pro Bowler and made him actually seem like, oh, this could be Brady 2.0. Matt Patricia, pretty good DC with Bill Belichick, and of course the greatest quarterback of all time, Tom Brady. It was very uncomfortable having so many changes in such a short period of time. When he had the opportunity, he went back to his comfort zone, brought back Joe Judge, brought back Matt Patricia, even brought back disgruntled J.C. Jackson at the first opportunity, go get him back. And I even said on the show, it's crazy how wide receiver is such a blatant need for the Patriots, yet when J.C. Jackson was screwing up with the Chargers, Belichick's like, we'll take him right now. And I think Belichick is trying to find a place of comfort. So what I think the Patriots should do, and Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick should accept this, is Belichick should fall back into his comfort zone fully. And what I mean by that is, I'm not saying go back to being the defensive coordinator. What I mean is stick only with the defensive side of the football. We saw this season, the offense was an absolute abysmal disgrace, tire fire, whatever adjective you want to put on it. Yes, it was that. The defense was top 10 in the league. And that even remained up until the end of the Jets game. They finished out the regular season with the 7th best defense in the NFL. 4th best in rushing, 11th best in passing. The offense was disgraceful. 31st in points allowed. It was their worst offensive performance in the Patriots' history. If I'm not mistaken, they got founded in 1960. So Belichick needs to fall back all the way into his comfort zone of defense. And the fact that he said that he was willing to be open to potentially letting up personnel duties to someone else is a very positive sign. Now, you could take it two ways. Belichick's accepting and realizing the situation, or he's desperate to keep his job. I'm going to actually look at it in the more positive light of he's finally accepting the situation and actually wants to keep coaching the New England Patriots. So what I would do if I'm Robert Kraft is give Belichick an ultimatum. Tell him stick with the defense. We're going to hire a guy to deal with personnel on the offensive side. You could have your input, but let a guy or two deal with the offense. Belichick remains on defense. I think that is the only way Belichick could come back and not only come back, but be a successful head coach again, is to get him away from the offense, keep him on the defense. Because like I said, the defense was number 7. The offense was the worst in the New England Patriots history. 63, 64 years of history. This year was the worst for Bill Belichick. It was the worst season since 1991. It was the worst season in Bill Belichick's career. It was the worst season in New England Patriots history when it comes to the offensive side. So I don't know if you agree with me or disagree with me, but I do believe the only way to make this relationship work and for Belichick to go back to being a great overall head coach is to basically remove him as far as he's willing to go out of the offense, because even when Bill O'Brien, who a lot of people, by the way, even after the season, they're like, okay, we're going to probably go get Bill O'Brien. When nothing really was talked about, they're always in the rearview mirror. Belichick still only allowed him to make one offensive staff change because he was comfortable with the people around him. And you know what? That's what happens. He told Urban Meyer years ago, he only wants to coach people he's comfortable with. He only wants to hire people he's comfortable with. And if you keep your eyes in the rearview mirror where the NFL is maintaining this pace of now switching from defense to offense, and Belichick is still looking at Josh McDaniels as a phenomenal OC, which he might be, but he's definitely not a good head coach. Matt Patricia still being a great, just play call all around. The defense in Philadelphia is still terrible. Joe Judge, special teams coach, he was great. Oh, let's make him the quarterback. It made no sense last year, but this season was even worse. It hit a legitimate rock bottom. The only way to move forward, Belichick stays on the defense. You don't need to make him a DC. I think that'd be insulting at this part in his career. But keep him as the head coach, but have him only maintain the defensive side. Get someone in there for the offense.
Never accept just being the DC at the Patriots because he can leave and get a head coaching job. There'll be a number of teams that would look at him. Even some of these playoff teams, I think there was a comment that I heard. Playoff team, they lose in the first or second round. They may look to say, well, Belichick's a fantastic coach. We have the pieces. He's what could get us over the hump. So he would have no problem. He's not going to accept not being a head coach. He will go somewhere else if he needs to. If that's the offer from the Crafts, is go back to just being the defensive coordinator.
I don't think it should be. I think just keep it defensive.
But you know what? That's what he, in his successful years, that's kind of what he did. He let Josh McDaniel run the offense.
It was McDaniel.
I don't think he had that
Brady.
much. He didn't have that much input there, and even with Mac Jones and with Cam Newton. The offense was pretty good. The offense was pretty good with those two guys. So Josh McDaniel can make the difference. He's heard you, Nate. That's what he's going to do. He's offering up Josh McDaniel. Josh McDaniel wants to come back to the Patriots. He was at the Jets game on Sunday. The Crafts like him. I think that I'm hoping that's what happens. I think that would be quite exciting. I would really relish that. It would give us something to look forward to next year. What they do in the draft is something we'll be talking about in future shows.
And my only problem with that is, what's McDaniel's role? Are you going to fire Bill O'Brien?
Yeah, he did terrible. He was terrible. I think he did no, in Josh McDaniel's offense, they had a few trick plays that they pulled out every once in a while, right? When they had Jacoby Myers, he was a former quarterback. They let him throw the ball every once in a while. Most of those plays were very successful.
Right.
And Bill O'Brien, the trickiest he ever got was an end around with the wide receiver.
Thornton.
Yeah, Thornton and Rieger. They did it a couple of times, and that was successful. Why not be a little more innovative? My God, the running game, you could tell the offensive line couldn't open a hole. They kept trying to run it, and I just think Bailey Zappi, I don't think is. He says he wants to be the starting quarterback next year. I see you got a picture of him there hanging his head. Yeah. That's what he should do after that game on Sunday. He was pitiful. Yeah. Pitiful. Come on. And I think they should bring back Zeke. And Ramondre Stevenson gets healthy again. They'll have a decent running game. They got to work on the offensive line and get some wide receivers and decide what they want to do about quarterback. The defense is all set. And they have the best defensive mind in the NFL history as their head coach. So hang in there, Robert Kraft. Remember my ode to Bill I read in our last show. Don't fire Bill Belichick.
Well, and Trent Brown, he's out of there next year. Belichick benched him, healthy scratch after healthy scratch. He sort of did a tell-all to Mark Daniels, who interviewed him.
He said he had nothing against Belichick, and he said he would re-sign with the Patriots if they made him an offer.
And here's where it gets interesting. Trent Brown said, quote, "If you pay Ted Karras, who played a hell of a season, I think that solves an issue. I think if you don't trade Shaq Mason, who's an all-pro guard, that solves an issue."
Yeah, if you didn't let Joe Thuney go either.
And then to not really replace them with guys of their caliber. He's right on all accounts. This offensive line went from being third in the league and Mac Jones being a Pro Bowler to being one of the worst in the league. Mac Jones benched 4 times. Bailey Zappi out there really not doing any better. Same amount of wins over worse competition. It didn't look much better. So now we're in a situation where the Patriots have literally hit offensively the worst offense they've had in the history of their entire franchise. And Trent Brown's right. You replace him with Antonio Mafi, who is the second worst guard graded by Pro Football Focus. Now, City So, from a horrible start to the season, he picked it up a little bit.
Yeah,
I'll give him credit.
he looked okay.
Moving Owenu from right guard to right tackle was smart because Calvin Anderson wasn't the answer. Veterian Lowe was not the answer. You really had no answer for an offensive line. You tried to piece it together, but at some point, that tape's going to come off. That tape's going to fall apart, and it was this season. Now, injuries. Riley Reef on the IR. Marcus Jones, defense on IR. Gonzalez, IR. Judon, IR. It's unfortunate. Eventually, Kendrick Bourne, IR. However, this team was not built for the potential of injuries. It was top-heavy, and being top-heavy, it wasn't even that good at the top.
It wasn't built for injuries on offense, but on defense it was, because the defense, even without Judon and Gonzalez, they rebounded, right? And at the end of the season, they had these guys in there playing safety. This Austin guy, I never heard of him, and he played great.
He did play great.
He played very well. So they, in the defensive side of the ball, they were all set. They got plenty of depth. They got bring back the injured player. The injured players get healthy. They were all both on contract. They got to make sure they sign Barmore and Jabril Peppers. They should bring him back.
He had a great season.
He had a very good season. And Kyle Duggar, you should have him back too. They should be able to get that all done. They got the most cap space in the NFL for next year. They should be able to improve a lot. Bring back Josh McDaniel, fix the offensive line, get a wide receiver out there, decide what you're going to do on quarterback. We'll be back in playoff contention next year. The schedule's going to be a little bit easier than it was this year. A brutal schedule this year too. Very hard, tough schedule. Third hardest in the NFL. So maybe they get a little break there. And
would you like to hear the opponents? We don't have the schedule breakdown, but do you want to hear the opponents?
I went through
now?
that, looked at it. It's still pretty tough, right? They in their own division is going to be a hard division, particularly with Aaron Rodgers coming back for the Jets. That will make them a little better. The Dolphins, both the Dolphins and the Bills are in the playoffs this year, so their own division has gotten a lot harder. It was a patsy when Tom Brady was the quarterback. They had those wins where they just lock them up every year. It was whoever they played, outside of their own division and in the NFC, where they always did very well too. So next year they have some tough teams to play. Go ahead, tell us who they are.
So the home opponents, obviously, you have the Jets, the Bills, and the Dolphins. Outside that, you have the Texans, the Colts, the Chargers, the Rams, and the Seahawks. On the away team, of course, you still have the Bills, the Dolphins, and the Jets. You also have the Cardinals. You have the Bears, the 49ers, the Bengals, the Jaguars, the Titans. Away, I really see 3 wins. 3 wins.
You don't know what the team's going to be yet.
I know.
That's a little premature.
But, I really don't think the Patriots are going to go from literally trash to all of a sudden Super Bowl contention. I do not think that's going to happen. They back then when they had to figure out a quarterback situation when Drew Bledsoe got hurt, Brady stepped in with the team with a top-tier defense and a pretty good offensive line. The receivers weren't that great just because back then, I don't think a lot of receivers were all that great. A lot of people probably can't
Jerry
name.
Rice was back in that era.
Right. You also had Isaac Bruce on the Rams. You had a lot. You had a lot of really good receivers on the top tier teams. The Patriots at the time were coming from a 5-11 season, not looking all that great.
They had Troy Brown.
You also had Deion Brown. You had guys who, if you weren't following the Patriots, you probably couldn't name, like Patton, Givens, whatever. You probably couldn't name a lot of those guys. But the team currently constructed. Okay, how about this? We'll take the team currently constructed. Do they beat the Cardinals?
Yes.
Do they beat the Bears?
Oh, currently constructed?
Currently constructed. Because I don't think
that. I don't want to answer that.
You don't want to answer? Okay.
It's a hypothetical.
Okay.
The team is going to be very different next year. Belichick admits
I don't think it's going to be.
It's broken. It needs to be fixed.
Yeah, well,
the offense is going to be very different.
I don't think it's going to be incredibly different.
I think it's going to have a better scheme. I think they'll have McDaniels as their offensive coordinator. They'll have a very innovative scheme. The offensive line will be better. They'll have the wide receiver core is going to be looked at and hopefully fixed, and the quarterback situation remains to be determined. I threw out the idea of either Jimmy G or Russell Wilson coming in. I don't know. I'm sure they'll give that some consideration too.
I think they should. All right, we're going to take a quick break, but coming up, the Eagles. What is going on with them? Losing 4 out of their last 5 games of the season. They lost to the New York Giants and Tyrod Taylor in Week 18. We'll talk about that. Also, congratulations to the Bills. Claim the number 2 seed and host a wild card game. I believe it's against the Steelers in this upcoming weekend list of games. Congratulations to them. And finally, Michigan. What a dominant win over Washington. We'll talk about that right after this.
Whether you're just discovering your voice or taking your show to the next level, you know what the world needs to hear. All you have to do is say it. With Spotify, set up your podcast. Your food podcast. Your mindfulness podcast. Your never thought you'd get this far podcast. And watch those sparks fly.
I put a picture of the
Drop the episode anywhere people listen. And find out who they're cooking with. Where they're finding inner balance. And why they love your show. You're already a creator. Now you can create, connect, and get paid for your passion with one single free tool. Spotify for podcasters. Talk where the world listens.
Welcome back to the Harvey Hour. My name's Stephen Harvey. Good to have you in on a Tuesday. It's been a pretty wacky episode here. I apologize for that. But let's get into our next topic here. So the Eagles, as always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. The Eagles have lost the last 4 of 5 games to end the year. This one was probably the worst of them all. A loss against the New York Giants starting Tyrod Taylor in a tire fire of a season for the New York Giants. The Giants' offensive line, abysmal. A bunch of the quarterbacks are top 10 in sacks. It's bad. Tommy DeVito, Tyrod Taylor, and then you had Daniel Jones, of course. They had a bunch of quarterbacks, very poor offensive line. The defense was underwhelming this year. Wink Martindale actually resigned as DC of the Giants. This entire season has been crazy, but somehow the Eagles still found a way to lose once again to a team who should be very inferior to them. I want to know. And this is bad. I'll bring up the numbers right now. These are the defensive numbers for the Eagles. We thought they were good with Matt Patricia potentially changing it. No, they just got progressively worse. Total defense 26th. Offensive opponent points per game 30th. Opponent passing yards per game 31st. Opponent passing touchdowns 31st. Opponent third down percentage 31st. Opponent red zone percentage 30th. Opponent passing rating 29th. Horrible defense through and through. And this is the team that just came back from potentially we're this close to beating the Kansas City Chiefs and winning the Super Bowl. I want to know this time, they're heading to Tampa. They're 3-point favorites against Tampa. How far do you think that this Eagles team can make it in the playoffs?
Not very far. I think they have a good chance to beat Tampa, although they are playing at Tampa. They beat them in the week 3, 25-11. Tampa's defense isn't a whole lot better. They're ranked 29th. The Eagles 31st against the pass, and the Tampa 29th against the pass. Tampa is good against the run, and the Eagles have a decent running game, right? With Swift, isn't that Swift they have, and also Jalen Hurts. But Jalen Hurts is hurt. He's banged up. He hurt his finger. He dislocated his middle finger on his passing hand. It wasn't broken, but I got to believe it hurts a lot after you dislocate it, right? So that's going to be a little bit of an issue for him. I think this game will be very close against Tampa Bay and the Eagles, and there is a chance that Tampa Bay might be able to win it. It all depends on how well Baker Mayfield plays, who played terrible last week. They are lucky they won that game 9-0.
Well, when it comes to this Eagles team, I had them repeating and at least heading to the Super Bowl. I think it's safe to say that they won't even make it to the Super Bowl. I don't think they'll make the conference championship, and I think there is a very high likelihood they don't even make it to the divisional game. Because what did we just see? I understand Jalen Hurts got hurt, but let's take a look at how Hurts was playing before he got injured. He was 7 of 16 for 55 yards and an interception. The Giants, Tyrod Taylor had a tremendous game. 23 of 32, 297 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. I don't think Jalen Hurts would have led that team to victory anyway. The defense is too bad. Jalen Hurts is too banged up. And by the way, this season, because they're not having these explosive plays, the turnovers for that Jalen Hurts is committing are not negated by explosive plays and them scoring touchdowns. It's by their defense after Jalen Hurts turns the ball over, the defense giving up points. And because their red zone percentage is so bad, we'll bring up the number once again. Red zone percentage, if we look at it, is 30th. They're not holding the field goals. They're holding them to touchdowns. So we're going from a 0 to 7 points for the other team. This Eagles team is shocking. And I think really we need to take a look at two things. One, the loss of Jonathan Gannon and the loss of Shane Steichen. Shane Steichen been working with Herbert and now working with Jalen Hurts. We saw how great those quarterbacks could be. Now without Shane Steichen on the offensive side, less explosive plays, less dominant offense. The offensive line is now giving up a bunch of pressures. It hasn't been good. Now look at the defense now. Jonathan Gannon goes to the Cardinals. We think, okay, Desai's in. They also have Matt Patricia as a senior defensive guy. Everything should be fine. And lo and behold, the defense is, I don't even think abysmal is the right word. The defense has been terrible. Absolutely terrible. And it's not for a lack of talent. They brought in a bunch of pieces that should, fulfill their talent. And they're underperforming, just not as good as we thought. They're a bad defense this season. And Jalen Hurts this season has not been able to overcome that poor defense. Now, in this game against the Bucs, which we'll get into on Friday when we make our picks, we don't know if Devontae Smith is good to go. We don't know if A.J. Brown's good to go. We don't know if Jalen Hurts is good to go fully. For me, I don't think that'll matter. And let's say, because of the injuries to Smith and to Brown, they can't go. I don't think Jalen Hurts will trust his guys enough for that next man up. I don't think they could run the ball effectively enough against a Tampa defense who, besides last year, in Brady's last year with Tampa, their rush defense has been one of the best in the league. I don't think this team will be good enough to even beat Tampa. I don't think Baker needs to play particularly well. I just think the Eagles are really that bad. Now, when they played them earlier on in the year, it was I believe it was a Monday game. They beat them 25-11. The yardage was very, very, it was a stark difference. 472 yards for the Eagles to 174 for the Bucs. I think two things are changing. One, the Eagles were very early on in the season. We didn't see the gaping holes. They were still a viable team for the Super Bowl. And Baker Mayfield with the Bucs early, they needed to get a rhythm going, needed to learn each other's strengths and weaknesses, and they need to figure out how to gel with one another and work. And Baker, at the end of the season, while it hasn't looked good in the past 2 games, they've been winning a decent amount of those. So I'm fearful if I'm an Eagles fan. I'm mortified if I'm Nick Sirianni. I think if he goes out and loses to Baker, loses another game to an inferior team or a team that should be inferior, I think he's on the hot seat.
I don't think they'll.
I think he'd be on the hot seat.
They're not going to let him go this year. I mean, he was in the Super Bowl just last year. I think that they were good until they ran into that stretch where they played so many hard teams, and they managed to pull those games out at the end. It took a lot out of them.
Right.
And then after that, they played the Cowboys in Dallas, and they lost that game badly. They've never been the same.
Right.
And whether they can recapture some of the earlier year brilliance that they had, they looked like the best team in the NFL. I was picking them. I said they're going all
before
the way
the 49er
this year.
game.
They really, before the 49er game, I was picking them, and I said, wow, they look like the best team. I think that there's a fraction on the defense where the defensive coordinator has kind of been demoted, and they let Matt Patricia call the plays, and the defensive coordinator up in the booth. It's weird. I think that's got to be something that's upsetting to the. I'm surprised the head coach would allow something like that. I think that has a bearing on how poorly they're playing on defense. It's just a weird setup, and it's not. It doesn't. Who's the leader? Who is the head of the defense? Is it the coordinator, or is it Matt Patricia? I don't know. When the guy's calling the plays is usually the one that's the leader. So it's weird. I don't understand that. So I think they're in trouble in the game at Tampa. They're playing on the road. They've been losing. They're on a losing streak here. They lost to the Giants badly. Their quarterback is banged up. Their wide receivers are banged up. The Bucs look to be pretty healthy, and they have excellent wide receivers. If Baker just plays a decent game, I think they have a very good chance to win, the Bucs. Yeah,
I would agree with that. And Jalen Hurts, he has been, I don't know if it's injuries. I don't know if it's just poor play. Something is going on with Jalen. because he does not. We saw him earlier on in the year running to go get a first down, and he looks like he's walking to go. He's limping or something.
He has a knee injury.
He's
had
been
a knee
injured
injury most of the year.
And the fact that he doesn't show up on injury reports, no one's really talking about it when it comes to the Eagles. And now A.J. Brown is reportedly, toxic in the locker room, and we saw it in a win. They were dominating in a win against the Vikings. And we saw A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts, it seems like, arguing on the sidelines. And that was earlier on in the year. That was the second game of the season. Now, it ended up being only a 6-point win. However, the Eagles were up big. About midway, 3/4 of the way into that game. And we saw A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts, seems like they were arguing between one another. So I think that may be starting something where, Brown, that toxicness, it could have rooted from there in game 2. And they kept winning games, and they lost a weird one to the Jets when Jalen Hurts played horrible. This Eagles team is not a Super Bowl team. I don't think it's not a good team. It's not a great team. It's a pretty bad team. And they're very, very grateful that the first, 10 or so games of the season were pretty easy. And they're able to come out with wins there against the Patriots. By the way, they almost lost, and they gave and that should have been the root. We should have definitely perked our ears a little bit more at Mac Jones having a career year in week 1. 310 yards, 3 touchdowns, the first time he ever did that. And if it weren't for Kayshon Boutte not knowing how to toe tap on a sideline, the Patriots may have beaten them in week 1. And we'd be sitting here saying, okay, let's see the wins that Mac Jones had against the Eagles, against the Bills. 2 pretty good wins, and they would have been 2 come-from-behind victories, game-winning drives. Now the Bills were the only one he had that against, but that should have made us think a little bit. The Commanders gave him a lot of trouble throughout the season. Now, they pulled it out on both ends of that, but a lot of trouble. Sam Howell, could he be the quarterback of the Commanders? It turns out, I don't know about that. Probably not.
No, it's just that the Eagles' defense stinks.
Right. The Cowboys, who have had trouble with the Eagles.
They lost the first game against them.
And Dak in big games, we've seen him struggle. They nearly beat the Cowboys nearly beat him the first time around, and then that second game, they got crushed by the Cowboys. So I think it's good. It's interesting. Even we see Kansas City offensively. In the second half, they struggled to put up points. The game was a 4-point victory. It was 4 points. The Chiefs nearly beat them with one of the youngest receiving corps in the NFL, and Mahomes having his worst season of his entire career. Nearly beat this Eagles team. So I think we may be, maybe fixated too much on what they did last year and how, athletic and incredible Jalen Hurts' talent is. But I think if you really take a hard look at it, this team is not good. Coaching, it seems like Nick Sirianni's just a walk-around guy. I don't see a lot of, passion when it comes to coaching and making sure everything's okay. He seems to be walking around, just sort of being a spectator. And when he beat the Chiefs, that's when he got vocal. It's when he was yelling at the Chiefs fans. And since then, team's fallen apart. So maybe his priorities are in the wrong place. Yeah, you did beat the Chiefs, but look at you now. One of the worst defenses in the NFL. Your team is falling apart. Culture-wise, Jalen Hurts talking about the amount of effort and commitment.
He lost his defensive coordinator and his offensive coordinator off-season last year. They both went to be head coaches elsewhere.
Right, and we mentioned the offseason. We don't know how big of an impact that is. Is it Jalen Hurts' ability or is it the coaches? And it turns out
I think it's a little bit of both. I think the coaches is a big thing. And they've proven that they don't have it. And this crazy thing on defense where the defensive coordinator up in the booth and Matt Patricia calling the defensive plays. I don't get it.
It is a very, very interesting situation. Let's get into the game, the AFC East title game that I'm calling it. The Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins. So the Bills, late in the game, Josh Allen able to get it done while on the last drive, Tua throws a very bad interception to seal the win for the Buffalo Bills, who do win the AFC East and claim the number 2 seed, while the Miami Dolphins fall all the way to the 6th seed. Josh Allen, he was the reason why they were winning the game at the end, and he was the reason why they were losing early. In this game, he had 426 total yards, 2 touchdowns, and 3 total turnovers, 2 interceptions, and 1 fumble. I want to know, how impressed were you with the Bills' victory over the Miami Dolphins?
I'd say the Bills are very, very lucky. Very lucky, considering where they could have, if they'd lost that game, there was a a potential, if other things had happened just right, that they wouldn't even been in the playoffs, right? And now they wound up winning the division and be the number 2 seed,
Right.
and get to play the Steelers at home. I mean, they'd definitely be the favored team in that matchup, right? And that's a much easier first round than they had last year against the Bengals, right? So they're sitting pretty right now. I think that they unexpectedly have the 2 seed and a very good chance to win their first playoff game and move on. And it all comes down to how well Josh Allen can control his emotions and not get too hyped up and turn the ball over, which happened to him in this game. And luckily, at the end, he managed to get it together, and he had some good numbers, but he had some bad ones too. 3 turnovers, 2 interceptions, 2 bad interceptions in the red zone, right? Both interceptions in the end zone. Here they are. Look at this. What he was throwing off is he was throwing as he was kind of falling down backwards. He never should have thrown that ball. And this one too, right? Just go out of bounds, right? Look, he gets way over here, and he just chucks it up there. That's very bad. I was not that surprised because we've seen him do this before, but it's going to catch up to him. I think the Bills, my overall comment here, very lucky.
I can't agree with you more. And they are probably in the best situation to start the playoffs as any other team. They're 10-point favorites over Pittsburgh. And not only that, TJ Watt's out for this game. Mason Rudolph will be the starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers in this playoff game. And a report came out now that Mike Tomlin might take a step back from coaching, or at least coaching the Steelers this season, at the end of this season. So they are in a great position to win a playoff game. But to start this game off, Josh Allen was the reason why they were losing. 2 straight drives of interceptions, then a fumble, and thank God Tua was off his mark, which at this point should not be shocking. If teams could get to Tua and keep him off that 4th step, he's out of rhythm. And we saw on that first drive, Tyreek Hill wasn't open. He just said, Tyreek's out there somewhere, let me just heave it to him in double coverage, thinking that all of a sudden Tyreek Hill is so much of a magic maker that he could do something out of nothing. And while he can do that, he needs to at least catch the ball first. And if you're throwing it to double coverage, he can't catch the ball.
Right. Well, that backflip he did and the touchdown he scored was pretty impressive.
Of course. No, he's an incredible athlete. But, Josh Allen turned this game from being Josh Allen, another Josh Allen performance, into oh my God, this is a Josh Allen performance here. 30 of 38, 359 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, a 101.6 passer rating. He was incredible when it mattered. Now, I said this on Friday when we were discussing this game. I said, if Josh Allen has a game like he did against the Patriots, I think Miami could take over. Lo and behold, I had the stat right in front of me, and I believed it. The offense is incredible without a winning team. And what I sort of figured out was I should have listened to myself and realized that, yes, while Josh Allen's turnover prone, against winning teams, the offense is horrible. I'll read it again. Against the Dolphins, against teams with a winning record before this Bills game, they averaged 18.4 points of offense, 335.8 total yards per game, and 1.4 turnovers per game. The defense gives up 36.6 points per game, 373.2 total yards per game, and only take away the ball once. If we take a look at the team stats for this game, the Miami Dolphins, total yards, 275. Yards per play is 5.7 to 6.1. Passing, 167. Tua could not do anything. Points, 14. So they actually did much worse because they also had 2 interceptions thanks to Tua. One very early in the game, one very late in the game. But
Waddle in the game.
Yeah, they didn't have Jalen Waddle. That was rough for them. But this Dolphins team,
I don't think they're as they're
not as dominant.
I think they were lucky during the regular season until this last game, and they were kind of exposed in some of the earlier games that they lost. And now they've fallen all the way to the
6th
seed, and they have to play the Chiefs, right?
Who they lost to. And by the way, in Germany, that game looked like it was going to be 40-0.
Yeah,
because that first half
actually
the
came back.
Do
the Dolphins came back in that game,
right? But then they realized the
but
Chiefs couldn't score in the second half at that point.
Yeah, well, the Chiefs. I think the Dolphins out in Kansas City. It's going to be freezing out there.
Right.
I think they're done. I think the Chiefs will win that game.
Now, we talked about how bad the Chiefs are, and I said the Chiefs are probably one and done. Yeah, not when you're going up against a team that you beat, and it seemed like, at least in the first half, you would beat them pretty handily. And this team is off rhythm. I think while Mike McDaniel is a phenomenal coach so far, I think the defense is pretty bad.
Yeah.
It can't stop really anybody.
Well, he's not a defensive guy. He's totally offense.
Right. And also that without a sustainable run game, an effective run game, Tua can't initiate the play action like he wants to. The motion doesn't work as well because if you have Achane or whoever, Tyreek Hill in the backfield, you motion him out. I really think you're just going to be like, screw it, someone's out there at some point and make the mistake. If you keep Tua off his rhythm, he's not as effective, he's not as efficient. And we saw that in this game. He could not make the big play.
They should have Waddle and Tyreek Hill for this playoff game, right?
They should.
They'll have Achane and Mostert.
Right.
They'll have Mostert back. That will make a difference. The problem is they're from Miami and they're going to be playing in the Arctic.
Right.
In Kansas City, it's going to be, I believe, if usual temperatures in January there, it's going to be very, very cold, and the Chiefs are used to that.
Right. I'll also say this. The offensive line hasn't been great for the Dolphins. We saw, and we did it on a Friday fun day, we saw in practice, the offensive line was just getting steamrolled by its own defense. And also, since I mentioned the defense also has been banged up. I think 5 out of the 6 main starters on defense, they're all banged up and out for the postseason. So much so they brought in Justin Houston, who is a longtime veteran in the NFL. He came in to play some defense. So right now that they're picking at straws. I think it's not going to be pretty for the Dolphins. I don't like the Chiefs' offense. I do not trust them. But because I think if the Bills go into Arrowhead, or rather the Bills actually would bring the Chiefs into their stadium, the Bills would beat them. I think
the Bills have a good shot.
I think the Browns would beat the Chiefs.
I think
the Texans would beat the Chiefs. But because the Dolphins, they already lost to the Chiefs, and in the first half it seemed like it'd be a blowout, I just think that the Dolphins are a really unfortunate situation, and we're going to talk about it Friday, but a little hint here, I agree with you. I don't think the Dolphins are going to win.
No, I think the Bills have a very good chance of getting to the AFC Championship game this year. Now, right? I think they're going to beat the Steelers.
Okay.
And then who would they play? They play the Chiefs at home after that. Is that where that game would wind up?
Well, the Chiefs, they'd be on the road if they go play the Bills again because Bills have the higher seed.
The Chiefs would go to the Bills to play,
correct,
right? For the second game, the divisional game.
Yes. Because the Ravens would play the lowest seed. The Bills would play the next lowest seed.
Yeah. So I think the Bills have a pretty good chance to beat the Chiefs.
Because the Chiefs are the 3 seed. They would, I don't know. You need to break. I don't have the bracket up right now.
We'll have to look at that on Friday.
But I think the Bills, if the Browns beat the Texans, I think the Chief. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure. I would need to see the bracket breakdown. But
we'll have to look at that on Friday.
I don't like this Dolphins team. I don't trust it. And then this game showed you why our concerns are legitimate. Because this team can't go out and beat a team that can sustain.
They've been that way all year. They really don't play against the really good teams well at all.
Right. And then, it's really unfortunate because this team is super talented. They're going with a lot of speed. They're trying to be the fastest team in the NFL. Achane's very quick. Mostert has shown bursts of speed. You obviously have Tyreek Hill. Jalen Waddle's fast. They're trying to go for speed. Jalen Ramsey on defense. He got cooked a couple of times. And I'll also say this score should have at least been a touchdown more. I think it was maybe the first play. Stephon Diggs breaks free and Josh Allen overthrows him. And Stephon Diggs was yards in front of Jalen Ramsey. Josh Allen with this incredible arm strength overthrew him. And these interceptions, I still can't get over them. This one, what are you doing? You aren't even near the guy. And this second one, we've seen players get benched for this kind of a throw.
He just doesn't give up on a play. You never give up on a play.
And that's
even
where
when there's nothing there. Look how all the players near him there.
He's surrounded by 3 players and throws it into no man's land.
Throws it right to the guy. Just terrible.
Players get benched for that kind of a throw.
You can't do that in the playoffs, man. You won't go very far if you do that in the playoffs.
So
Can't have 3 turnovers in the playoffs in a game and expect to win.
now, fortunately for the Bills, like I said, you're playing up against a banged-up Steelers team who've lost T.J. Watt, their best player on that entire team, and Mason Rudolph is a starting quarterback. Very fortunate. They'll win this game, go into the next week, and that's where I think we could see the cracks. And if Josh Allen goes back to being, I want to do everything, Josh Allen, and when we see that, like we saw in this game, 2 interceptions and a fumble, I think we get into a point where, depending on the team, because I thought the Dolphins could do it, but lo and behold, I had it right in front of me, and I read it on the show. I didn't even take what I wrote down and realize that this team doesn't score against good teams. I think against these playoff teams, which are the best of the best in the NFL, I think they would be able to capitalize on Josh Allen's mistakes. Let's get into our last topic here. So, we talk about this when it comes playoff time. We did it last week when we talked about Washington and Texas and then Michigan and Alabama. We talked the college football playoff. Now, next year, this is the last year of the 14 playoff. Next year, I believe it's the 12-team playoff, which should be very interesting to watch. But Michigan, they won the national championship and won it pretty handily, 34-13. J.J. McCarthy, not the best game. Only 171 total yards, no touchdowns. Blake Corum had a phenomenal game. And also, can't forget about the other running back, Donovan Edwards, who also had a very, very good game as well. They were able to come out big. Penix didn't look 100% at the end of the game. He was limping by the end of it. Took him about 18 hours to make it into the tunnel there. I want to know, what was your biggest takeaway from last night's game?
I thought that the Michigan looked like they were dominating the game right from the beginning. Washington managed to get within 7 points a couple of times, but I felt like Michigan was controlling the game most of the way, and then they kind of pulled away at the end. And J.J. McCarthy, a very good game. Wilson, their wide receiver, and Corum there, the running back. I mean, those guys don't look like elite football players, right? The running back that he's not that big, and Wilson not that big either. But man, they're good football players. They played very well. They were ready to play, and they came out hot. They got a nice lead, 17-3, and they kind of never looked back. That's how I saw it. I mean, it did get within a touchdown there for a while, a couple of times, but it didn't feel like that Michigan was in trouble any time during the game.
I saw it a little bit differently than you. And I'll hark back to what I said after the win against Alabama. I said J.J. McCarthy looks like a product of Jim Harbaugh's system, or rather of just the Michigan system. And this game proved me exactly right. And I'll give credit to Jim Harbaugh, and I'll give credit to Michigan staff overall. They wanted to do one thing, and it was very obvious, and by the end of it, it was blatantly obvious because they broke a record. They wanted to do the ground and pound, the vintage style of football. Run the ball, play great defense. And what did they do in this game? Ran the ball and played great defense. 303 rushing yards, a BCS CFP record. 4 rushing touchdowns. This is a number that blows me away. 8 yards per carry, in large part due to Donovan Edwards, averaging 17.3 rushing yards an attempt. At the end of the first quarter, they had like 19.8 yards per carry. It was incredible. They never lost their identity when things were looking down. Early in the game, Washington had a couple opportunities. They were down 17-3, but to open up that second half, we saw that Penix had 3 straight opportunities within 7 points to tie and take the lead, and he fell through. Against Alabama, that game was incredibly close. Went to overtime because Michigan ran less than their average per game. They could not run the ball as efficiently and as effectively as they would have liked. Now against Washington, who their defense, they looked, I think, much better against a Texas team that maybe wasn't all that. Now you go into a legitimate, all-around, phenomenal team with great coaching, physical defense, and lo and behold, look what happens. Well, Michigan looked unstoppable, and late in the game, they secured their victory. And I'll give credit to one defensive player in particular who won the defensive, MVP or whatever against Alabama, and that's Mason Graham. His pressure rate, his dominance, his physicality, he's definitely an NFL player. We'll have to wait and see how high he goes, but I think he'll be a very, very good pass rusher in the NFL. Blake Corum, Look what he's done the past couple games. He's been incredible. Absolutely insane. At 134 yards and 2 touchdowns, I think he's going to have a great career in the NFL. J.J. McCarthy, 10 of 18, 140 yards. I don't like J.J. McCarthy. I don't think he'll do very well. As an NFL quarterback, I think he'll be a system quarterback. He made a couple nice throws against Alabama, and in this game, he made a couple early, and then in totality, Michigan went into what Michigan does, and that's ground and pound, run downhill, play great defense, and kill clock. So when it comes to Michigan, I say they kept their identity. Run the football and play physical on defense. And that got them to a national championship and a 34-13 victory over Washington. Now, when it comes to the Huskies, I think that this game actually, I think it takes a ding into Penix's draft stock. Now, I said he's a top 3. I said he's the 4th best quarterback in the draft. I say now he's now a fringe 4th best quarterback in the draft because we have to take a look at this. I believe he's a 6th-year senior. He's had season-ending injuries basically his entire college career. And I believe his player comp is Tua, which is perfect because Tua also had an injury history. I think Scott's going to look at Penix and be like, this kid really doesn't play that much and gets hurt a lot. I think it's very, very dangerous for a team to draft him incredibly high.
I thought the Michigan-Alabama game was a lot better game.
I think it was
more
well.
Exciting. Michigan had to come back from being down to win that game, and had to do a 4th down in their own territory to get the first down to keep the drive alive. That was and went into overtime. That was a really exciting game. This game, it seemed to me like at the first quarter, Michigan's going to win, and that's what happened.
I will take advantage in the fact that I did pick Michigan to win from the very, very early on, because I believed in Jim Harbaugh, which then gets us into this of what does the future of Michigan, and in particular, what does the future of Jim Harbaugh look like? For me, I think it's the same reason why I think Mike Vrabel should go to a number of these teams, in particular Carolina and Washington. Although I think every coach out there, unless they're really that desperate to be a head coach, Carolina's probably not the first choice for anybody.
The bar's set pretty low down there.
The bar is set very, very low.
1 win.
Right.
That's pretty bad.
Well, I think the Commanders and the Chargers are the best job, and I think in the case of Jim Harbaugh, Chargers are probably the best job for him.
Yeah.
Because everything is set there. Mike Vrabel, he's a culture builder. Is he a great overall head coach and a winning? He's won a lot of games, but I think that's just about the willpower and the strength of the culture he built.
You think Ron Rivera's done? He'll never have another head coaching
job? That's the other head coach I meant. I should have mentioned when I was talking about Coach Fire. He got fired as well.
Yeah, he's a culture builder.
He is also a culture builder, but he was at the point where he was losing a lot of games.
Yeah.
The culture, and I also give a lot of blame to the front office. The Commanders' front office, especially the owner, was a bit toxic.
Mm-hmm.
Very,
well,
very
they said
toxic.
Rivera ran out of stories.
And
motivational stories.
You could see that. You could see that. Early on, Sam Howell looked like a great quarterback. Late
you
in the
think
year,
Harbaugh will jump to the NFL this year? It's going to be a lot of money.
The way that game was set up, his brother was there, his family was there. It did look like a send-off of, I did everything I needed to in the college football level. I wouldn't be surprised. However, I think with the way he's built up Michigan, could he be, could he try to be the next Nick Saban and surpass Nick Saban on just dominance over college football? Mm-hmm. I don't know. But if you have an opportunity to coach a team with a lot of really great defensive pieces, you have your star quarterback, you do have a weapon, you do have a great left tackle in the NFL level, and you've already made a Super Bowl. You've already made a couple NFC championship games. So you know how to win at the NFL level. You won at the college level. You lost at the NFL level. You were right there.
He lost to his brother.
Lost to his brother. That was the blackout game as well. The lights went off. It was a half an hour break.
After they came back on, that's when the Ravens took off and won the game. The lights came on for the Ravens when the lights came back on in the stadium.
Exactly. The only problem with the Chargers' job is you're facing Sean Payton twice. You're facing Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid twice. You're in the same conference as your brother. And I guarantee you, he doesn't like playing John Harbaugh. Because John Harbaugh's beating him up. And at the biggest stage.
Yeah.
So the Chargers' job is probably the best one when it comes to circumstance.
I think he's headed to the NFL. I really do. He has the
would
out
also say,
clause.
yeah.
He can leave for the NFL anytime he wants. It's in his contract. I think Michigan will make him a great offer to stay, but I think he's won the national championship. He can always go back to college football if he wants.
Right.
He's 60 years old, coach in the NFL for 4 or 5 years, and go back to college football. Much later in your career, you could do that too. So he holds the cards, and I think he'll make the jump to the NFL because the money's going to be really good.
He doesn't look 60. He looks pretty good for 60.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't surprise me if
he's kind of an odd character too.
Yeah.
He has people
He's
asking
quirky.
questions. He's quirky.
Yeah.
He gets asked a question. He goes off and answers some question that wasn't even asked. So he's a quirky guy. Yeah. And he was wild on the sidelines when he was the San Francisco 49ers coach.
Yeah.
He would get all upset. And I don't know, but he won. He's been a winner everywhere he's gone.
Right. So we'll have to wait and see. But right now, congrats to Michigan. You are national champions. And I think that does wrap up this episode of the Harvey Hour. Thank you all for tuning in. Sorry about the weirdness to start off. But if this episode, my name is Nathan Harvey. That's been Stephen Harvey. We are the hosts of the Harvey Hour. Catch us Friday. We're going to pick Super Wildcard Weekend. We're back doing that. By the way, our 2-year anniversary, 8 days from now. 8 days from now. We'll celebrate that on Tuesday. But for this episode, like I said, my name is Nathan Harvey. That's been Stephen Harvey. Catch us Friday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, right here on YouTube.
Night, Grandpa.
Using Wi-Fi without NordVPN could mean sharing your private stuff with more people than you think. Stay safe on public Wi-Fi. Get NordVPN's special offer and encrypt your internet connection. NordVPN. Online security starts with a click.